With us now to help answer the question about what makes a candidate cool. What's the secret with Bernie? Two cool cats, LZ Granderson here and Randy Lewis. Thank you guys for being down here. Really appreciate it.
Good to be here.
What's the deal? I mean, the generational thing in this election, in this primary, is really remarkable when you have all the young people with Bernie and all the older people with Biden now. What do you make of how, Bernie Sanders has become a cultural figure?
He really has, and it's interesting because he appeals to so many young voters that it goes hand in hand with the kind of people from the music business that he's attracted. You've got Killer Mike, rappers, Lizzo. He's got a lot of people from the indie rock community, Vampire Weekend, Bon Iver. But he's got some old timers too. Neil Young is a big Bernie
Fish
supporter.
The other night, right?
He just keeps piling them on. He's really attracted a lot more from the music community than really any other of the Democratic candidates have so far.
What do you make of that, of the sort of cultural cachet that Bernie Sanders had? I mean, Bernie Sanders, I don't think, has thought about what he wears to work in a long time. I don't think anybody knows what kind of music he listens to, right? He doesn't seem like he's all that attuned to the culture, and yet he's become a cultural phenomenon of sorts.
Well, I think part of it has to do with his presentation, and you talked about what he wears. Well, he looks like the cool old uncle who you just want to hear stories from, right? But the stories he's talking about are stories that are relatable to a large swath of people, which is why he has the excitement that I don't think any other Democrat has shown. He talks about income inequality. He talks about fairness. He talks about things that young people are passionate about and also artists are passionate about in their work, in their lyrics, in the movies that they direct or produce or write. And so he's touching on a lot of things that artists and creative people can tap into while also looking like the cool uncle with the New York accent that you can have a beer with. And those two things have made him the cultural figure that he's become today.
Do you see any comparison to other, talk about Bill Clinton going on Arsenio Hall and playing the saxophone, these moments that kind of humanize some of these politicians. With Bernie, right, we're not seeing that. He's not really bending over backwards trying to humanize himself. He's just putting his authentic self out there, I guess, and fighting for what he believes in. And that is getting more of a reaction than anything else anybody's done.
Yeah, I think he's attracting the artistic community, which tends to be more progressive thinking, just temperamentally. So they kind of align with the things that Bernie's talking about. And this is why he draws them in. He doesn't seem to be pandering to them or just really courting these endorsements, but they speak to the issues that a lot of these artists are really passionate about.
And it's really interesting. I covered 2016, and his messaging and his approach has matured over these last 3 to 4 years. Yeah, you can certainly make an argument that, there's reasons to believe that the establishment, he likes to call it, worked against him. But he's also has learned from some of his own sort of self-inflicted wounds. Case in point, when he was noticing, or his campaign was noticing, he wasn't attracting a lot of African-American voters, well, he turned to Cornel West. Well, anyone who's really plugged into the African-American community know he was canceled a long time ago, and black people really weren't paying attention to Cornel West like that, but he didn't know. So what has he done? He's sharpened his tools. He's gotten people who are able to tap into elements of communities around the country that he was missing. Yeah, his message resonates, but he needs to resonate. And in order to do that, he needed to kind of fill those holes. Another case that I think has really been interesting, if you noticed, when he first ran, it was the millionaires and the billionaires. Well, now it's been learned that he's a millionaire. Now it's just the billionaires. So he's made a little slight adjustment, but no one's really calling him out on it because his passion still registers as genuine.
Since we're talking about culture, I want to ask you, we looked tonight at the results, pretty clear the Democratic nominee is going to be either Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. Maybe a long way to go figuring out which one. But when you look forward and you look to November, the fall election, and you look at a matchup against Donald Trump, who is not only the president, but is, a reality TV star, really a media character first and foremost, and a person who understands, whether he has a lot of endorsements from cultural figures or not, he's a person who understands how to use the media, how to make himself a cultural phenomenon, how to make his his rallies, how to make his red hats part of a culture. You know, maybe it's a different culture, but he understands communicating, mass communicating, and he understands sort of cultural movements and what binds people to him. Do you think that Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden can compete with that in terms of, you know, the emotional connections that they draw on, and can some of these cultural figures perhaps help with that?
No.
No.
Cultural figures won't help. I think we're past the day in which you can prop up someone who's cool, and then through osmosis, you come across as cool as well. I think Hillary Clinton kind of proved that. I mean, she had Beyonce and Jay-Z with her, and she still didn't register as cool herself. So I don't think people are falling for that okie dokie anymore.
Yeah, it's a different era now, and in the era of social media, every individual voter has their own platform, and the candidates can reach out directly, and they don't need the intermediary a lot of times. But there's some cool factor depending on who it is that they get that can connect with some people that may be undecided.
I would say that in the case of Bernie Sanders, he really doesn't need any surrogates. But from my own reporting and observations, I would assume that Joe Biden does.
What about AOC, though? I mean, when you're right, Bernie had the heart attack, and he was not a frontrunner at that point. Does the big rally in New York City, AOC is out there, huge crowd, and whether it was the rally or whether it was her endorsement or not, but that was really the moment where he started to trend up, Elizabeth Warren started to trend down, and those trend lines haven't really changed, and now we are where we are. Maybe she's not a figure from the culture, and that she's not an artist, but she has a following, right? In this age of social media, I mean, maybe she's more important than musicians and other people. I mean, because that's an instance where someone endorsing a candidate really did seem to turn the key.
Well, definitely that. And then there was also aspects of Elizabeth Warren's policies that were being sort of exposed, or at least looked at more carefully at that time as well. So I think it was a combination of things that caused that sort of swift change, if you will. But in terms of trying to find other cultural figures beyond just artists to help boost the campaign, you're absolutely correct. She's more than just an elected official. She is a cultural figure. And the question is, we know Bernie can tap into this energy. Joe Biden has tapped into a different energy. It's a pragmatic energy. It doesn't lend itself to the creative force, if you will. And so how he finds people to help boost his energy level is going to be really interesting, because Bernie seems a lot more natural.
Yeah, and you trot out Barack Obama and all the old, it just sort of feels a little retro.
They're done.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've seen, too, is that some artists are really pushing just to get young people to get involved in the process, to register to vote. Taylor Swift came out in 2018, and within 5 days of when she endorsed candidates in the Tennessee congressional races, nearly 500,000 new people registered to vote. Ariana Grande has done it at her concerts and getting tens of thousands of people registered. So that's getting even, a greater voter base among the young voters.
But it also doesn't generate headlines. I mean, I remember Mayor Pete was in Iowa, and he had Mandy Moore at a rally, and they had Kevin Costner out there doing voiceover videos. Those things just don't really wow people the same way maybe that they used to.
No, they don't.
Because they're so present on social media all the time.
Yeah, they're not even hard to get a hold of. You can go on Instagram right now and see what LeBron is doing. He's playing basketball right now, but I mean, he's going to tweet how he feels right away. Mm-hmm. Again, it's about the connection feeling genuine, I think, more than anything else. And I keep going back to Joe Biden because, again, just based on my own reporting, he appears to be the pragmatic choice. We're picking Joe because we believe he can beat Donald Trump. When people talk about Bernie, they're talking about his policies and his passion and being genuine. And that is how they defeat Bernie or Donald Trump. Those are two different paths. And so because of that, it feels as if the former vice president is going to struggle a little bit finding a surrogate to come in to boost, because he himself hasn't found a way to tap into the energy.
This is a fun conversation. I know we got to wrap it up, but I would just ask, do you see anybody in this town who is going to come out of this space and be on the Trump team? I mean, we know Kanye went to the White House, and maybe he sort of walked it back, and that got a huge reaction, and that was a wild day in the Oval Office. But do you see any people who are going to step forward and support him? I mean, Trump loves to run against Hollywood and bash elitists, and whether it's media or entertainment or whatever. But he likes it when people from that industry come out and support him. I think John Voight's been to the White House, I don't know how many times, flies on a plane with him. If you're with him, then he's great with it. Do you have any idea if any?
I don't know beyond the usual suspects. You know, Ted Nugent's a fan,
Right.
Kid Rock's an admirer. They've been to the White House, and so we'll probably be seeing more of them. But I'm not hearing rumblings of.
You know, it's hard to imagine anyone who wants to work in this town being public with it. Privately, they may, but publicly, it's going to be difficult.
So that's the problem. They go to the White House, they want to keep it private, and Trump's going to invite all of the reporters into the Oval and be like, "Look who I got!"
Right.
Yeah, this is
Isn't
my
this
guest.
cool?
Yeah, it was private for 5 seconds. Randy, LZ, thank you so much for coming down here. It's great to chat with you. It's a fun conversation. Really appreciate all the work that you guys do for us. So, thank you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.